Welcome back to Whitney Alex Works recap of The Bachelorette Season 18, Episode 9, The Fantasy Suites. Michelle and her top three men head to Mexico and enjoy the tropical landscape, complete with jungles, beaches, and picturesque views, the perfect backdrop to fall in love with. But trouble in paradise is not far off, as Michelle has to narrow down her top three to her final two before the episode is over. Let's dive in. For the first time since Hannah Brown's season, the Bachelorette franchise is heading to an international destination, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, on the Pacific side of the country. Michelle is ready to continue to fall in love with her final three men, Brandon, Nate, and Joe, who are all eager to spend some quality time with her to continue to build upon their connections. We see Michelle talking to Caitlin walking down a breathtaking beach. They talk about Michelle's final three men and where she stands with each of them. Michelle acknowledges that she could see a future with all three men, each in their own way, but a big concern she has is that she might be more into Nate than he is into her, and of course that concerns her because she is falling for Nate. We see the final three men sitting around all together, which please stop putting the final three together. It's terrible and incredibly awkward. Remember the good old days when the show actually separated the final three? Well, anyway, Tayshia walks in and explains to the three men the agenda of the week. Fantasy Suites Week contains a one-on-one date with a chance of an overnight for all three men. And not to anyone's surprise, Brandon gets the first date card. Just like hometowns, Brandon goes first with the Fantasy Suites date. Brandon is still over the moon about Michelle, and he is so excited to see her. He heads out to the jungle where we see some exotic birds, iguanas, and some horses. Michelle is waiting for Brandon, and their activity for the day is horseback riding through the jungle. Brandon is ready for anything with Michelle, and his horse decides to take off, trotting off before Michelle's horse can catch up. But eventually they ride together and head to a beach where they share a kiss horseback riding, and eventually they settle down and have a small picnic by the ocean. Both Brandon and Michelle are so excited to be around each other that Michelle even calls Brandon her best friend, which I can see that they are so comfortable around each other that the relationship would most likely last beyond the show. But Brandon may be more into Michelle than she is into him, despite their strong connection. Brandon says in his confessional that his heart belongs to Michelle and references that his heart is hers to do with what she will. And despite me thinking of emo bands like My Chemical Romance when Brandon says stuff like that, I feel like Brandon is going all in without guarding his heart, which makes him vulnerable to getting hurt in the end. But despite the risks, Brandon and Michelle do acknowledge that they care for each other, with them both being excited that they got to meet each other's parents, and both are excited for the potential future they could share together. We head to the nighttime portion of the date, and the couple continues to bond, with Brandon telling Michelle that he is in love with her, knowing since day one, but really falling for her on their ice cream date in episode 6. Michelle then pulls out the fantasy suite card and Brennan accepts his overnight invitation. They head off and are able to spend the night together, uninterrupted and without cameras. The next morning, they both wake up happy and content that this could be insight into a future together. Michelle tells Brennan that she feels heard and safe with him and that she is so happy with him. They even share a morning food fight, which has me in cringe mode because I'm like, no, who is going to clean that up? And two, there are going to be roaches in about 30 seconds. When the food fight is over and Brandon heads back to the other men, there is a sense of unease and jealousy with Joe and especially Nate realizing that the week is getting intense with emotions on the line and the realization that there are genuine relationships with all three men. The next fantasy suite goes to Minnesota Joe, which has Nate even more twisted in his feelings, and even Brandon is bummed, realizing that despite the feelings he shares with Michelle, the other relationships she has could mean more. Well, Joe heads out and meets Michelle on a hill where they are going to have a picnic, but the thing is, the picnic is far away and is way down on the ground, and to get there, they have to zip line down. Both Michelle and Joe are excited and they get strapped and ready to zip down over the tree canopies. They have a great time together and share laughter and the thrills of the activity that ziplining offers them. And soon, when they get to the ground, they are talking on a bench about their experience, where Michelle was surprised that Joe was yelling out during the zipline, thinking that he would be quiet because of his reserved nature. But Joe did have a great time and laughed about the fact that Michelle thought he would be quiet on his way down. But Michelle tells the camera that her relationship with Joe has gone slower than the rest. But Joe does say he is ready for an engagement and he is invested in Michelle. They end the day portion section and then head to their dinner date. Joe and Michelle meet up and continue to connect, with Michelle saying that she is happy that she saw an adventurous side of Joe on their day portion of their date. But then she compares Joe to being like a puzzle, which honestly isn't a good sign at this point. But Michelle does acknowledge that her and Joe want to have an impactful life and start a family one day. Soon, Michelle pulls out the fantasy suite invite and Joe accepts. They head out and spend the night together, but the evening is juxtaposed with Nate kind of freaking out back at the hotel, and it's concerning to Brandon, who is witnessing Nate's spiral. But then it's the next morning, and Joe and Michelle wake up together, with Joe telling Michelle that he is in love with her, and Michelle saying that she is happy she saw a relaxed Joe with the cameras off, and they share a nice breakfast together. But when Joe returns, Nate is still a little off, with both Brandon and Joe questioning if Nate is even ready for a long-term relationship with their mutual love interest, Michelle. Nate has the last fantasy suite date and he meets up with Michelle on another boat. He hops aboard and they set sail. Michelle and Nate have a really nice time together and they settle down on a hammock on the boat, which was really neat. And they talk about Nate's struggles this week. Nate acknowledges that he did struggle this week, and Michelle acknowledges that a lot of things are out of his control and how he responds to it is telling. But through the troubles, they do continue to connect, with both of them being crazy for each other, with a lot of kissing and hugging, and with the couple being comfortable with each other. But Michelle has a major concern about Nate. Is he ready for an engagement at the end of this? At the nighttime portion of the date, Michelle is ready to figure out Nate completely. She asks him point blank if he is ready for an engagement, which Nate does say yes, he is ready and he is all in with Michelle. Michelle is relieved, as she was concerned that Nate might get freaked out by the long-term commitment based on him saying that he has never been in love before. Michelle then invites him to the fantasy suite and Nate accepts. They spend the night together away from cameras and emerge the following morning closer than ever, with Michelle saying that she sees Nate as her potential soulmate, which is telling of where Michelle's heart truly stands. Both are on cloud nine after their fantasy suite date, with them even being serenaded by a mariachi band in the morning before Nate takes off. And when Nate returns to the other men, there is a sad energy as all the men realize that one of them has to go by the end of the upcoming rose ceremony. All three men are getting ready for the next crucial rose ceremony, with everyone anxious and concerned about where Michelle's heart truly lies. The men come to the rose ceremony one by one, with Michelle showing up already conflicted about her upcoming decision. But before Michelle begins the ceremony, Brandon asks if he can speak with her. This makes Joe and Nate nervous as they don't know what to expect. Brandon and Michelle head off to talk, with Brandon saying that no matter who Michelle picks, he has her back. Michelle is in tears and they hug before they separate, and Brandon heads back to the rose ceremony. Then Michelle heads in and she is ready to begin, knowing that this decision is going to be very difficult. The first rose she hands out goes to Nate, securing him a spot in the final two for Michelle's heart. And the second and last rose goes to Brandon, which means Minnesota Joe is heading home. Michelle walks Joe out and they have a conversation, with Michelle in tears, knowing that this was a very difficult decision for her to make. And Joe is rightly in shock, with him saying that he did see a future with Michelle and that his feelings were real. Michelle walks Joe to the car and they hug goodbye, with both being devastated that their relationship had to end, with Michelle being emotional and Joe feeling emotions as well. And with Joe heading home back to Minnesota, there are only two men remaining. Nate and Brandon are Michelle's final two, and with both men head over heels for Michelle, this means that sending the next guy home is going to be even more intense as an engagement is on the line. That's it for this recap of The Bachelorette Season 18, The Fantasy Suites. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe at Whitney Alex Works for more videos in the future. See you next week for the final episode in Michelle's journey, the finale, where Michelle has to decide who is her true soulmate. Is it Nate or is it Brandon? See you next week for the grand finale of The Bachelorette Season 18.